There are 15 thrift store finds that can be worth a fortune, and one may be sitting in the watch case beneath the chipped pottery, inside a box of old games, or rolled behind the picture frames. I mean the handmade bowl priced as crockery, the unfamiliar console sent towards recycling, the battered handbag and the camera nobody has opened. Every price today comes from a real auction sale. We begin with finds worth thousands and climb, item by item, into the millions. At number 1 is a scratched stainless steel Rolex Daytona once worn by Paul Newman. His wife, Joanne Woodward, had "Drive Carefully Me" engraved on its back. Newman later gave it to James Cox after Cox repaired a treehouse. That direct family story helped drive a 12-minute bidding battle to $17,752,500. I will explain why its unusual dial, photographs and untouched history mattered. By the end, you will know exactly which labels, serial numbers, marks and missing accessories to check before leaving a thrift store treasure behind. Most donated goods are ordinary, but maker, model, printing, completeness, condition and documented ownership can turn an overlooked shelf item into something exceptional. I'm Malcolm Ashby, an auctioneer and valuer for 40 years. Here is what I would inspect before I bought, cleaned or walked away from any of these 15 finds. Now before we carry on, let me say one thing. The support my channel has had lately has been overwhelming, and I mean that. So here's what I've decided. I'm not putting ads on these videos. You've given me your time and I won't have it interrupted. If you'd like to support my channel, there's one way. You can scan the code on screen now with your phone's camera to get my book. I've put everything I know into one book, the Household and Collectibles Price Guide, 2027 edition. Every common item you might own, how to value it, and what it actually sells for. It even tells you where and how to sell it, who buys it, what they'll pay, and which route to take for which object. To get it, and everything I know, it's over at my website, malcolmashby.com. That's MALCOLMASHBY.com. Right, let's carry on. Number 15. Signed studio pottery. The pottery shelf is where good work is most often priced as useful crockery. A hand-thrown bowl can look deliberately rough, and that is exactly why the maker's mark matters. In Sotheby's Made in Britain sale in 2021, Emmanuel Cooper's Yoke 2, a stemmed bowl made in 2000, sold for £7,560. Cooper was not making a soup bowl. He was using clay, glaze and form as a studio artist, and the clean pale colours were a deliberate rejection of the brown rural pottery tradition. Your test in the shop is to turn the piece over without scraping it across the shelf. Look for an incised monogram, impressed seal, painted initials or an original exhibition label. Then examine the foot ring. Hand finishing, small firing marks and a foot that belongs to the form are useful clues. A printed imitation signature on a mass-produced base is not. Photograph an unknown mark and search the mark itself, not merely old pottery bowl. Keep any paper label dry. Do not remove crazing with bleach and do not test a loose handle by lifting the piece. Most studio pots sell for modest sums, but recognized artists such as Lucy Ree, Hans Koper, Shoji Hamada and Cooper have serious collectors. The thrift shop advantage is not that every handmade pot is valuable. It is that the shelf is crowded, the mark is underneath, and many shoppers never turn the thing over. Number 14. Early role-playing games. A shallow faux wood grain box can look like an incomplete old game, particularly if the artwork is restrained. Heritage sold a second printing Dungeons & Dragons wood grain box set from 1975 for $13,200 in May 2025. Only 1,000 copies of that printing were made. Inside were 3 small rule booklets and a corrections sheet, Men and Magic, Monsters and Treasure, and the Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. Remove one booklet and the set is no longer the same proposition. When you see old role-playing material, do not sort it into separate piles of books, dice and maps. Photograph the box first, then list every booklet, sheet and insert. Look for Tactical Studies rules rather than the later TSR branding, wood grain paper rather than the more familiar white box, and early staples, price marks and owner notes. Do not erase a name from a cover or replace rusty staples. Those details may offend the tidy-minded, but they can establish that the contents have lived together. Common later editions may be worth tens of dollars. The first small printings of games that created an entire hobby are cultural artifacts. In a thrift store, completeness is often sitting 3 shelves apart, so check the book section before you give up on the lonely box. Number 13. Prototype and early arcade hardware. The ugliest electronic object in a charity warehouse may be the most interesting. RR Auctions sold a working pre-production Atari Missile Command arcade cabinet for $22,154 in 2022. It came from Atari hardware designer David Sherman, whose signature inside the cabinet and original drawing supplement helped prove that it was a lab-used prototype. It lacked the colorful side graphics of a normal production machine, which is precisely the feature an inexperienced buyer might treat as a fault. Look for metal asset tags, handwritten engineering labels, unusual ports, serial numbers, and circuit boards bearing revisions that differ from retail examples. Never plug an unknown cabinet straight into the wall. Old capacitors, damaged insulation, and an incorrect voltage can injure you and destroy the evidence at the same time. Photograph the rear, control panel, and interior labels, but do not pull boards unless you know how to discharge a monitor safely. Keep manuals, keys, and loose wiring diagrams with the machine. A battered standard cabinet may be expensive to move and modest to sell. A prototype used by the people who designed the game is history. The missing decoration may not mean unfinished. It may mean never meant to leave the laboratory. Number 12. Vintage music posters. Posters are routinely folded, pinned, and priced as wall decoration, yet printing date and venue can move one from nostalgia into serious money. Heritage sold an original window card for the Beatles' final concert at Candlestick Park in 1966 for $32,500 in 2022. The strongest music posters were printed to advertise an event, used briefly and discarded. That is why an original can be far scarcer than the records or photographs of the same performer. Your test is the paper, printing, and event detail. Read the promoter, venue, date, and printer's credit. Compare dimensions with a documented example and look at the ink under magnification. Modern digital dots and brilliant white paper are warnings. Pinholes, tape stains, and folds are not automatically fatal because a working poster was expected to be displayed, but trimming can remove the printer's line and a linen backing can conceal repairs. Never flatten one with a household iron. Roll it loosely around archival tissue or carry it flat. Beware authorized reprints made decades later and reproductions that copy the front but omit the original size. With posters, the famous face attracts attention, but the tiny line at the bottom proves what you actually found. Number 11. Rare vinyl records. The record bin teaches a harsh lesson. Title alone tells you almost nothing. Millions of Beatles records survive, but first state, factory, label, and provenance can create an exception. Copies of the withdrawn Yesterday and Today butcher cover have brought 5 figures, and sealed examples from Capitol Records president Alan Livingston's own saved box have been valued and sold at the very top of the market. The controversial photograph was recalled after Capitol had already printed hundreds of thousands of covers. Many were pasted over with a safer image, and many owners later damaged them trying to reveal what lay beneath. In the shop, do not judge the sleeve while leaving the disc inside. Check whether mono or stereo is stated, read the matrix numbers in the run-out groove, identify the pressing plant, and compare label details. A first state butcher cover shows the original image with no paste over. A second state example has the replacement slick intact. A third state has been peeled. Never start peeling one yourself. A professional can assess whether the overpaste and underlying image are genuine. Keep promotional stamps, shop stickers, and letters of provenance. Do not clean a rare disc with tap water or play it on a worn stylus merely to see if it works. A common reissue is listening material. A sealed withdrawn cover connected to a record company executive is a documented survivor of a famous corporate panic. Quick word, if you've got any old things at home, don't do anything with them yet, not till you know what they're worth. My full price guide, every common item you might own and what it sells for, is over at my website malcolmashby.com. That's MALCOLM Ashby.com, or scan the code on your screen. Now back to it. Number 10. First edition modern books. Libraries and thrift shops remove old books every day, which is why the copyright page can matter more than the dust. Sotheby's reports that a hardback first edition, first impression of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, sold for $138,600. Only 500 hardback copies were printed in 1997, and about 300 went to libraries. That means a withdrawn library copy is not automatically worthless. Library markings are part of why so few clean survivors remain. Your test is not simply to read, first published 1997. Look for the number line running down to 1, the repeated 1 wand on page 53, and philosophers misspelled on the lower cover. Check the publisher, Bloomsbury, not a later book club or overseas edition. Do not erase stamps, remove a plastic library covering, or repair a split spine with household tape. Photograph the copyright page, boards, title page, and every defect. For other authors, learn the publisher, issue points, and correct dust jacket. A first edition can contain several impressions, and only the earliest may command the extraordinary price. The thrift shop habit that pays is simple. Never buy the story until you have read the numbers. Number 9. Historic indigenous textiles. An old blanket may be shelved with rugs or used beneath furniture because its design looks simple. At Christie's in 2006, a classic Navajo man's wearing blanket sold for $204,000. Early wearing blankets were made to be wrapped around the body. Their finely spun hand-woven wool, strong geometry and restrained palette differ from many later tourist rugs. But this is a field where respectful specialist advice is essential. Do not rely on a native style tag. Examine the weave, selvage, fiber, dyes and dimensions, and photograph both faces. Look for provenance labels or family notes, but do not invent tribal attribution from appearance. Never wash one in a machine, beat it outdoors, or hang it from 2 nails. Weakened warp threads can tear under their own weight. Roll it around an archival tube with clean material between layers. Also check the law and cultural sensitivity before selling objects that may be ceremonial or subject to repatriation rules. A later decorative weaving can still be attractive and valuable, but it should be described honestly. The fortune lies in correctly identifying a rare early textile, preserving its history and allowing the right specialist to distinguish a wearable blanket from a 20th century floor rug. Number 8. Vintage designer clothing. Thrift rails compress couture, copies and ordinary clothing into the same 20 inches of metal. In 2019, Christie's sold a Yves Saint Laurent jacket embroidered as a tribute to Van Gogh's sunflowers, together with its green silk skirt for €382,000. Only 4 examples of the jacket are thought to have been created. The workmanship is the first clue, a surface built from sequins, beads and embroidery, not merely printed with a famous image. Your test begins inside. Photograph the main label, size label, care label, seam finishing, and any atelier numbers. Compare the typography and stitching with authenticated garments from the same season. Keep the matching skirt, belt, buttons, and garment bag together. Do not dry clean an important piece before advice. Beads can dissolve, metallic thread can darken, and an enthusiastic presser can flatten handwork. Do not assume an altered hem destroys all value, but disclose it. Provenance to the original client, runway documentation, and a photograph of the garment being worn can matter enormously. Fashion at this level is not simply second-hand clothing. It is design history with a body-shaped structure, and the parts most likely to be thrown away, the belt, spare beads, and handwritten fitting tag may be the parts that prove it. Number 7. Exceptional handbags. A genuine luxury bag can survive years in a wardrobe and still look less impressive than a new imitation. At Christie's Hong Kong in 2020, a rare Hermes Himalaya Kelly made in 2019 with 18-carat white gold and diamond hardware sold for 4 million Hong Kong dollars, about $513,000, setting an auction record for a handbag at the time. The pale graduated crocodile finish, rigid Kelly construction, and precious hardware made it a pinnacle example, not a price guide for every old Hermes bag. Your test is to slow down. Check the blind date stamp, craftsman's mark, stitching angle, hardware engraving, leather texture and construction inside the pockets. Compare all of it with the exact model and year. Keep the clochette, keys, lock, strap, rain cover, dust bag, receipt and box. Do not polish metal or feed exotic leather with an unknown conditioner. Legal restrictions on crocodile and other exotic skins can affect international movement, so establish species and paperwork before listing it online. Fakes are excellent, and a receipt can be fake too. Use an experienced authenticator. A worn ordinary model may still be worth hundreds or thousands. The $500,000 result belonged to an exceptional specification, pristine condition, and rarity. The lesson is not every handbag is a house deposit. It is never price an unfamiliar bag by the charity shop rail. Number 6. Important wristwatches. Old watches are easily missed because the valuable part can sit inside a scratched case on a tired strap. In Phillips' 2017 Winning Icons auction, a Rolex reference 8171, known to collectors as the Padalone, sold for $603,000. The model combines a complete calendar with moon phase in a large case for its period, and surviving examples are scarce. That result still belongs to an exceptional watch, not to every old Rolex in a donations cabinet. Your test is to photograph before winding. Read the dial, case back, bracelet clasp, and any visible reference numbers. Keep every box, service paper, spare link, and old photograph. Do not open the case with a kitchen knife, polish the lugs, or replace a faded dial. The apparently shabby luminous paint, calendar discs, and crown may be original. Shiny replacements can reduce collectability. If you find a branded watch, assume nothing counterfeits, and assembled Franken watches are common. Have a specialist examine movement, case, and dial together. A famous name on the face is only the beginning. The strongest value appears when the serial, reference, and components tell one consistent story. Number 5. Original illustration art. The picture section often contains framed drawings because staff cannot tell whether they are prints, studies, or finished originals. Thomas Taylor's original watercolor cover art for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone sold at Sotheby's in 2024 for $1,920,000. Taylor was 23 and newly out of art school when he gave the then unknown boy wizard his first public face. That makes the sheet both an artwork and the visual birth certificate of a global character. Your test is to inspect through the glass without dismantling the frame in the shop. Look for variations in pigment, pencil construction lines, corrections, and surface texture that a flat reproduction will not have. Check the reverse for gallery labels, publisher's notes, stamps, and inscriptions. Never rub an artist's name to see whether it is pencil. Do not trim a mount, and do not allow ordinary glass to remain in sunlight. If the picture resembles book, magazine, comic, or advertising art, search the published image rather than only the signature. Original illustration can be unsigned because the artist's credit appeared in the book. The printed object may be common, while the single sheet from which millions of copies were made is unique. Number 4. Mid-century design furniture. The chair with a torn seat may be placed outside because it looks too modern to be antique. Yet, design furniture is identified by maker, model, and construction, not by carving or age alone. At Sotheby's in 2018, a rare table designed by Carlo Molino for Casa Orengo sold for more than $6 million. It was one of the extraordinary organic forms Molino made in tiny numbers for specific interiors, and its provenance linked it to the original commission. Your test is to look beneath the furniture before you sit on it. Photograph labels, branded stamps, screws, joinery, and old upholstery tacks. Compare dimensions and construction with a museum or catalogue raisonné entry. Do not sand away a paper label, replace unusual feet, or improve the color. A later licensed production is not the same as a period example, and a look-alike is not the same as either. With molded plywood, fiberglass, and tubular steel, repairs can be difficult to see in a dim shop, so use sidelight and check stress points. The best thrift find may look familiar because thousands of copies borrowed its shape. What makes the original valuable is the small group of details the copies got wrong. Number 3. Ming Dynasty fish jars. The large lidded jars in the furniture corner can be mistaken for later decorative imports, especially when the design is exuberant. In November 2024, Sotheby's London sold a complete pair of 16th century Jiajing period Wusai fish jars for £9,600,000, about $12.5 million. They brought more than 9 times their high estimate. The pair had remained in one family for generations and could be seen in a 1926 photograph of a grand house in Wiesbaden before being moved for safety during the Second World War. Wu Kai means 5 colors, though the palette need not contain exactly 5. On these imperial jars, fish swim among water plants in colored enamels over underglazed blue. Covers are crucial. Sotheby's noted that many related jars survive without them, while complete pairs are exceptionally rare. Your test is to inspect body and lid together. Photograph the 6-character rain mark, rim, foot, glaze, and every old label. Do not swap lids between jars merely because they fit, and do not fill chips or repaint enamel loss before expert advice. Most colorful Chinese jars in thrift stores are 19th or 20th century decorative wares. A rain mark can be later and respectful rather than proof that the piece was made for that emperor. Construction, clay, glaze, painting, and provenance must agree. Yet, number 3 proves why a bulky pair deserves patience. A complete set that survived war, relocation, and generations of domestic life can be worth $12.5 million because almost every comparable pair was separated, damaged, or lost. Number 2. Rare cameras and lenses. The camera bag beside the board games may contain a model collectors have chased for decades. In 2022, Light's Photographica auction sold a Leica Zero Series number 105, formerly owned by Leica inventor Oscar Barnack, for €14,400,000. Only about 23 Zero Series prototypes were made around 1923 to test the market before commercial production, and Barnack's name was engraved on the viewfinder. The auction record was not created by an old camera in general. It was created by one of the instruments that helped invent modern 35mm photography, with the inventor's ownership attached. Your test in a thrift store is to keep body, lens, and accessories together. Record the serial number, lens engraving, shutter markings, and any owner name. Check for early features, unusual rangefinders, black paint wear, and factory modifications. Do not fire a stuck shutter repeatedly, clean fungus with household chemicals, or force a collapsing lens. Never discard a case because it smells old. Serial matched cases, caps, finders, and paperwork can matter. Most film cameras are affordable, and some famous models were made in enormous numbers. But prototype, military, press, and special edition equipment can be rare. Search the number, not just the red dot. And number 1. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona. The crown jewel is the object most easily hidden in a drawer of costume watches, a stainless steel Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 6239. In October 2017, Phillips sold the watch for $17,752,500 after a 12-minute bidding battle. For the thumbnail, the exact truth is astonishing enough, worth $17,752,500. This was not simply the same model as Paul Newman's watch. It was Paul Newman's watch the example that gave the exotic dial Daytona its famous collector's nickname. His wife, actress Joanne Woodward, gave it to him as his interest in motor racing deepened. On the back she had the words "Drive carefully, me" engraved, a personal warning from a wife who knew exactly how seriously he took speed. Newman wore the watch for years and was photographed with it repeatedly. Around 1984, he gave it to James Cox, then the boyfriend of his daughter Nell. Cox had helped repair a treehouse and mentioned that he did not own a watch. Newman handed him the Daytona. Cox kept it for more than 3 decades. That direct chain from Woodward to Newman to Cox was the provenance collectors could understand without guesswork. The watch itself mattered too. Reference 6239 was the first Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, with the tachymeter scale moved to the bezel. Newman's example carried the contrasting exotic dial, whose squared markers, Art Deco numerals, and subdial treatment were once slow to sell and later became the most desired Daytona configuration. But another reference 6239 with a similar dial is not worth $17 million. The record was created by the union of model, original components, personal engraving, photographs, and uninterrupted ownership. Your test is to leave an old watch alone until it has been examined. Photograph the dial, case, bracelet, engraving, and paperwork. Do not polish the case, relume the hands, or replace a faded dial to make it look younger. Do not wind a watch that feels gritty or force a stuck pusher. Keep service receipts, spare parts, and family photographs. If a story connects it to a person, record names and dates while witnesses are available. Authentication must cover the whole watch. Counterfeit dials, replacement bezels, and mixed movements are common. A genuine case around incorrect components can still mislead. Use a respected specialist who can compare serial, reference, movement, dial, and service history. And never post a clear serial number publicly before you have security and insurance in place. Why did the bidding reach $17,752,500? Paul Newman was the actor and racer who made this dial famous. This was the watch that made the name literal. Woodward's engraving turned it into a private family object. Cox's long ownership preserved the line, and the photographs proved Newman wore it. Buyers were not paying for steel by weight. They were buying the object at the center of modern watch collecting. The thrift store lesson is not that every scratch Rolex buys a mansion. Most do not. And many branded watches in donation cases are fake. The lesson is that a dull watch on the wrong strap can carry its most important evidence on the back, inside the case, and in an old envelope beside it. Number 1 proves that the smallest item on the counter can hold the largest story in the shop. That is the thrift store ladder, studio pottery and early games in the thousands, posters, records, books, clothing and bags moving into 6 figures, then illustration, design, cameras and Paul Newman's Rolex reaching millions. The categories differ, but the useful questions never do. Who made it? Which version is it? Is it complete? Has somebody altered it? Can the ownership be proved? Take a small torch and your phone. Photograph marks rather than rubbing them. Search model and serial numbers, not vague descriptions. Check the book section for the booklet missing from a game, the accessories shelf for the strap missing from a bag, and the electrical bin for the base separated from a shade. Do not plug in old electrics, clean unknown surfaces, or dismantle framed art in the aisle. If the price is small and the evidence is promising, protect the object and research it properly. And keep your expectations sensible. The shop may have 50 studio bowls and no Emmanuel Cooper, 100 glass shades and no Tiffany. The profit is in disciplined recognition, not wishful thinking. A reproduction can be attractive without being an investment. Buy what you like, but when the maker, date, construction and provenance line up, stop treating the object as ordinary. That pause is free, and it has saved more treasures than any clever cleaning trick. Here is the 5-minute inspection I would use before taking anything to the counter. First, decide whether the construction matches the supposed age. Machine perfect screws in a piece described as 18th century, a modern barcode beneath an alleged Victorian vase, or polyester care labels inside supposed 1920s couture do not always condemn an object, because parts can be replaced, but they demand an explanation. Second, find every mark. A maker's name on its own can be copied. A maker's name accompanied by the correct model number, date code, material, workmanship and aging is much stronger. Third, check completeness. The shade without the base, book without the jacket, and console without the proprietary supply are not merely missing accessories, they may be missing much of the market. Fourth, inspect condition without trying to improve it. Use your phone torch at a shallow angle. It will reveal overpainting on a poster, cracks in glass, replaced finish on furniture, and rippling beneath a print. Smell can warn you about mold or unstable plastics, but do not put your face close to unidentified chemicals. Ask staff before opening a box or moving a heavy object. Photograph damage so you remember what was present at purchase. Fifth, look for provenance. A faded owner's label, monogram, gallery sticker, or handwritten note may appear untidy, yet it can connect the find to a place, date, or person. Never detach it at the counter. If you buy the object, protect it on the journey home. Do not put a glass vase loose beside a cast iron pan, fold a poster into a shopping bag, or allow a leaded shade to rest on its rim. Ask for separate wrapping, support fragile forms from below, and keep damp textiles away from paper. For electrical pieces, remove loose bulbs but retain original fittings. For books and prints, avoid a hot car and direct sun. The sale is not secured until the object reaches home in the condition in which you recognized it. Then research in layers. Start with exact wording from the mark or label. Compare museum collections, auction house archives and maker catalogues before social media claims. Look at sold prices, not optimistic asking prices, and check whether the figure includes buyer's premium. Compare like with like, the same edition, size, material and condition. A record result tells you what an exceptional example achieved, not what every related item is worth. If evidence remains promising, send clear photographs to 2 appropriate specialists. Do not begin with how much. Begin with dimensions, marks, condition, where it was found, and why you think it may be the model in question. There is also a selling decision. A local general auction can be excellent for a useful regional object, but a rare camera, studio pot or couture garment needs buyers who recognize its language. Specialist auctions create competition, yet fees, shipping, insurance and timing matter. A dealer may offer less than an auction estimate, but provides certainty. An online marketplace puts authentication and legal description largely on you. The correct route depends on the object, not on which website is easiest to open. Finally, protect yourself from the emotional trap of the bargain. Paying $4 does not make a vase worth $100,000, and paying $400 does not make it genuine. The price you paid and the value are separate facts. Let evidence do the work. Jessica Vincent's Murano vase became a great find because the faint mark, design, specialist attribution and auction competition all agreed. The small price merely made the story irresistible. Evidence, patience and the correct specialist made it valuable. That is the repeatable part of the lesson. If you enjoy these practical treasure hunts, press like and subscribe. Then tell me in the comments which aisle you check first: books, glass, clothing, furniture, or the jumble of old electronics at the back. Look underneath, keep the pieces together, and give an unfamiliar mark time to tell you what it is. 10 patient minutes can prevent a mistake no restorer can reverse later. Next time, we are opening the boxes of old toys and games people throw away, including the piece of cardboard that sold for $12,600,000. If anything today looked familiar, have a proper look before you sell a single thing. Everything's in my price guide over at malcolmashby.com, or scan the code on your screen. I'll leave it up for you.